What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Arman Tsarukyan kicks coach out of OCTAGON again. While there's been no word on when Arman Tsarukyan will be back in the OCTAGON, the streaking contender has continued to train while awaiting word on his next fight. And before we continue, make sure to leave a like on the video to help support the channel. This week, Tsarukyan was seen kicking coach Arman, who famously used to train Ronda Rousey, through the OCTAGON door during a training session. Tsarukyan shared the clip on Instagram, along with the caption, "Can somebody please keep the cage closed?" From the sounds of things, however, fans are skeptical that the video may be staged. Back in February, there was a similar incident where Tsarukyan knocked another coach out of the OCTAGON while working on his boxing. Bisping says Islam Makhachev made a huge mistake. Before officially vacating the lightweight title and making the jump up to welterweight, Islam Makhachev had been very open about the fact that he eventually wanted to pursue a second title. Despite that, Bisping feels as though Makhachev may have made a mistake. During a recent episode of his Believe You Me podcast, the Hall of Famer theorized that getting a win over Jack Della Maddalena will be no easy task given how many problems Alexander Volkanovski caused for Makhachev in their first fight.
Yeah, there's a few things there. So Jack says that Islam's too small for him. I think he's got a point.
Yeah, I mean,
he's got a point because Volk is not a very big man. He is the man, but he's a smaller man. And that first fight with Islam, he gave him everything he could handle. Yeah. Jack Della Maddalena is not a small 170-pounder, so I think it might be a big mistake for Islam going up to 170. It might be a bit of a stretch. But fair play to him. I respect it.
While there's been no word on when the two may fight, Shavkat Rakhmonov wants it to be known that he has dibs on the winner. Kazakh outlet Ulis Media quoted the Nomad as saying, "The situation is difficult. I'm waiting to see who will fight for the title. Perhaps we'll go straight to the title fight, even next year. I'm waiting. I don't want to waste my energy on intermediate fights." If Rakhmonov does in fact wait for the winner, he could be out until spring, or maybe even summer if Makhachev and JDM wind up fighting in November at Madison Square Garden. Former UFC fighter exposed for lying. Tim Kennedy got exposed and finally admitted to stolen valor by saying that he was never awarded a Bronze Star. He posted on social media writing, "I want to take full and unequivocal responsibility for a serious mistake. Over the years, I made public statements and gave interviews in which I unintentionally misstated aspects of my military service. Most notably, I implied directly or indirectly that I had been awarded the Bronze Star with valor. That is not true, and there is no excuse for it. I never received that honor, and I deeply regret ever suggesting otherwise." That kind of recognition is sacred. It represents extraordinary courage under fire, acts that risk or cost lives. To those who truly earned it and to their families and brothers in arms, I offer my sincere and direct apology. What I said disrespected your service, and I take full ownership of that. I was young when I stepped into the public eye, and while I wasn't prepared for the scrutiny or pressure that came with it, that doesn't absolve me. I should have known better. Integrity is not situational, and I failed to uphold the standards I claim to represent. To the military and veteran community, especially those who've served in combat or lost people they love, I am deeply sorry. I know I've let many of you down. You had every right to expect more from me, and I didn't live up to that. This apology is not the end, it's the beginning. I'm committed to rebuilding trust through honest reflection, visible accountability, and ongoing service to the community I misrepresented myself to. I will no longer speak about my service in a way that elevates me beyond what I actually did. From now on, my words will be guided by truth, humility, and respect. I understand that words alone don't heal disappointment or restore trust. Only time and action will. To those of you who have held me accountable, I will do my best to honor that accountability from this point forward. Tim Kennedy. The MMA community reacted to Tim's stolen valor by saying, "It takes a real man to admit mistakes. I know I'm a better athlete having trained next to you. I appreciate you, bro. TLDR, I lied, got busted, and I promise going forward that I will stop lying. Trust me, bros." Crazy, Tim Kennedy just made a public statement that he lied about being awarded the Bronze Star of Valor. Most of the comments on his page are from his blind followers giving him credit for coming clean, not the fact that he lied and misled for everyone. I actually liked him too, but now he's a fraud in my mind, just like Liver King. Hard to trust any of these high-profile influencers on social media these days. They seem to easily lose their values chasing the spotlight and fame. Such a disgrace. He would have never mentioned this if he didn't get caught. He would have kept on living in lie. Does anyone actually believe that Tim Kennedy unintentionally misstated any aspect of his career, or that he simply implied he had a BSMV? What are your thoughts on the entire situation? Let us know in the comments below. Leon Edwards says prime Jon Jones would have beaten prime Tom Aspinall. Although there's no telling whether a fight between Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall will ever happen, the MMA community has continued to debate how a potential fight between the two would go. While speaking with Carl Froch, Leon Edwards weighed in, indicating that although Aspinall may have the edge right now, if the two fought in their respective primes, Jones would have won. Prime, I got Jon Jones for sure, 100%. I rate Jon Jones highly. I believe he's the best to ever do it. As UFC veteran Matt Brown explained in the latest episode of The Fighter vs. the Writer, Jones isn't afraid of fighting Aspinall, but what Jones is doing sure looks like ducking. I'm as big a Jon Jones fan as anybody. I've always defended he's not afraid of Tom. He's willing to fight anybody. It's hard to not fall into that narrative here though. To me, fighting at the White House, that doesn't do it. But maybe I'm a different person. Maybe everybody looks at it different. For me, you tell me they're gonna have a fight at the White House, it would be cool to do it. If not, whatever, a fight's a fight. Maybe Jon Jones looks at it different. Maybe that got him motivated and sparked his interest enough. But I'll tell you, this looks bad, in my opinion. I've got the most respect for Jon. I talk about it all the time. The dude was kicking people's asses while on I've done enough to know I could not do that. Respect, Jon. You are a bad mother. But this looks like ducking. Although some believe that Jones's long history of PED failures is a stain on his legacy, Rashad Evans indicated while speaking with Red Corner MMA that he thinks Jones is the greatest of all time. He's got to be number one if you're honestly looking at it. I know he has the asterisks as far as people can say the and stuff like that, and some of the things outside of the cage. But I don't really slight him for that. I know how hard it is to compete while dealing with distractions in your personal life, and he never allowed that to become the main thing. He always went in there focused and was one hell of a competitor. After unretiring over the weekend, Jones appears to be back training again in a new video shared on social media. In the case of Leon Edwards, the former champion is hoping to be back in action before the end of the year. As he explained to Carl Froch, I want to fight again hopefully in October or November. I'm in talks now with the UFC and Dana White trying to find an opponent that fits, and let's go from there. No word yet on who Edwards may face when the time comes. Max Holloway sends a warning to Dustin Poirier. We're less than 2 weeks away from Dustin Poirier's final fight at UFC 318. Ahead of the fight, Max Holloway has sent the former interim lightweight champion a warning, saying that after retiring, the Korean zombie, who he's now good friends with, he's ready to retire another UFC legend. He spoke about the fight during the latest episode of Taisei Discovers.
And it's a BMF title, and I keep hearing people say if he wins, then they take the title away and they retire the title. So I'm like, bro, this ain't happening.
It's your title.
Yeah, this ain't happening yet. So at the end of the day, I'm good friends with Korean Zombie. I retired one legend. You know what I mean? Hopefully we can keep the ball rolling on retirements, and I can get this one.
While Holloway's had a legendary UFC career and is considered one of the best featherweights of all time, he doesn't want to be known as the guy who went 0-3 in 2 different trilogies. As he explained in an interview with MMA Junkie's Mike Bond, making history is great, but I ain't trying to be the man who fought 2 trilogies and went 0-3. According to the latest betting odds, the MMA community is pretty much split right down the middle regarding how the fight will play out. Alexander Volkanovski talks about health issues from Islam Makhachev and Ilia Topuria fights. After dropping a decision to Islam Makhachev at UFC 284, Alexander Volkanovski was knocked out by the former lightweight champion in their rematch at UFC 294. According to Volkanovski, the knockout left him with more lingering concussion symptoms than his knockout loss to Ilia Topuria did. While speaking with Demetrius Johnson in a video for the former Flyweight Kingpin's YouTube channel, Volk opened up on the situation.
I feel like I had more of a concussion from the Islam one.
Yeah,
even though I was knocked out longer with Ilia, I had a lot more of the symptoms than that with the Islam one. So I probably should have had more of a break.
I think the protocol is 90 days, no contact whatsoever.
Yeah.
Oh, and what was your...
I didn't have like head contact, but then when you're easing into it, now you're easing into it, making sure you're not getting hit.
Yeah, but what was...
Putting yourself in safer... Trying to put yourself in safer positions.
Yeah.
You even start camp wrong. I should have had the break.
That wasn't the only thing Volk opened up on during his sit-down with Mighty Mouse. In addition, he also indicated that after his big win over Diego Lopez at UFC 314, his family wanted him to retire and ride off into the metaphorical sunset. Straight after the fight UFC 314, my whole family was like, why didn't you put the gloves down in the middle of the octagon right away? They all wanted me to retire. Now that I'm continuing, they won't bring it up, but I made it clear that they all wanted me to stop after the Lopez fight. While there's been no word on when Volk will defend his title, the expectation is that he'll likely return to action before the end of this year. UFC updates. Heading into this weekend's Lewis Teixeira card in Nashville, Tennessee, let's take a look at today's UFC fight updates. Starting with 2 new additions to the UFC Fight Night Abu Dhabi card on July 26th. According to reports, Amazon Temirov has been forced out of his fight with Azu Amalbayev, and as a result, Almabayev will now collide with Jose Ochoa, who will be looking to build on a second-round victory over Cody Durden last month. The card, which will be headlined by a fight between Robert Whittaker and Rainier de Ridder, will also play host to a fight between Martin Budai and Marcus Buchecha Almeida. 2 weeks later, when the Octagon heads back to the Apex for UFC Vegas 109 on August 9th, Jocelyn Edwards will collide with Priscilla Cachoeira following the withdrawal of Mayra Bueno Silva. The week after that, a welterweight bout between Jeff Neal and Carlos Prates will take place on the UFC 319 card in Chicago, Illinois. The pair had been booked to fight in April, however, Neal wound up withdrawing due to an injury. Instead, Prates wound up fighting Ian Gary in Kansas City 2 weeks later, losing a hard-fought decision and suffering his first loss inside the octagon. We got several updates on the Noche UFC card set for September 13th. According to reports, the event will play host to a women's bantamweight fight between Alice Pereira and Montserrat Rendon, and a flyweight fight between Edgar Chairez and Alessandro Costa. Additionally, Brandon Moreno revealed via Instagram that he's accepting Brandon Royval's call-out for a trilogy fight on the card. The pair's trilogy stands at 1-1, with Moreno stopping Royval in 2020 and Royval edging out a split decision in 2024. Lastly, the UFC has now officially rescheduled their fight card in Qatar. If you don't remember, the first ever UFC Qatar card was originally set for May 17th, as the UFC partnered up with Visit Qatar. However, it was canceled. Today, the UFC revealed on their social media that the card will now happen on November 22nd. Who would you like to see headline this card? Let us know in the comments below. MMA community goes off on Dana White and UFC. This week, a YouTuber released a video explaining, quote, why the UFC sucks. Considering the state of MMA has been a hot topic in the MMA community, plenty of fans were quick to weigh in with their thoughts. And from the sounds of things, many are not happy with Dana or the UFC. Dylan Danis thinks that what the UFC needs is more of him. We need excitement, and I'm the only one who can bring it. One fan thinks a lack of American stars is to blame. This is what happens when 70% of the roster requires translators. From the looks of things, others think that's only part of the problem. Half the roster doesn't speak English. Dana sucks at promoting. Guys are only fight 1 to 2 times a year. The pay-per-view and ticket prices keep going up. Guys too worried about being double champ, etc. Another wrote, undeserved title shots constantly. Quantity better than quality algorithm is not it. I'd rather have less cards knowing the ones we do get are stacked. Promote your actual stars you have in front of you instead of up-and-comers who don't end up panning out and then they're hype. One fan added, simple. Every above average fighter thinks they're a lot bigger than they are and refuse to fight more than 1 to 2 times a year. That's why we haven't seen any stacked cards this year and may not for the rest of the year. Another pointed to the UFC prioritizing quantity over quality. Feels like quantity over quality problem. I blame ESPN. I don't think it sucks by any means, LOL, but it's the biggest it's ever been with the most problems it's ever had. Still gonna watch Lewis and Teixeira. Several other fans agreed. Everyone is completely missing the issue in the comments. Here's the biggest factor. Before ESPN deal, 25 cards per year. After ESPN deal, 40 plus cards per year because the UFC is contractually obligated to have more cards. They're less stacked / exciting. That's literally it. One fan suggested the mentality of fighters has changed. It's followed boxing in that generally fighters seem more obsessed with remaining unbeaten and forging a legacy rather than taking on challenges and putting on fun fights. Most people's favorite fighters are those who take risks and put on fun fights, in my opinion. Another member of the MMA community highlighted several different issues. The more I see older fighters being real, the more I hear how much it sucks to be in this sport past early 30s or so. The weight cuts especially, but all of it. That's an inherent problem when you combine the fact guys at the top make all the money. It's hard to get them to fight on the regular when there may be grown-up poor kids now with several million in the bank. That's FU money to most people. Throw on top of that how many top guys now come from the East where money and fame isn't the kind of driver in the West. You have a hard time getting your top 25 fighters to fight on the regular. This is a star-driven sport just like the NBA. Nobody wants to go to the games the nights the stars are on the bench. Not when paying big for tickets, so for the UFC this means Apex fights or dull fight nights, or even trouble putting together bangers once a month for pay-per-view, pretending Conor is coming back. Consider the 5 most popular fighters in each of 8 weight classes. That's 40 fighters. If they each fought twice a year on the regular, that's 40 hot fights you get a year. But if you only get 20 out of that pack instead of 40, you're reaching far more often to try and sell popular fighters on big event nights. It feels like this is the foundational issue. Others want to see top fighters fight more frequently. It all comes down to matching, making, and activity. Ranked fighters should be fighting 3-4 times a year. Every champion should have to fight a minimum 3 times per year and be stripped if not. A lot of the best guys are only fighting twice a year, which is insane. One fan pointed to the cost of being a fan as a huge issue. I think the answer now is the price point has gone out of reach to its fans. It started being unaffordable after $75, especially the number of the pay-per-view cards is just unaffordable. Love the UFC, but I can only follow it from the peripheral now. Some fans, however, think the UFC is in a great spot. UFC doesn't suck. People complaining all the time suck. If you don't like it, watch some other organization. And if every other organization sucks, then this sport isn't for you. Find something else. We have a favor to ask. Help us reach 200,000 subscribers on MMA Zone by subscribing and turning on notifications for daily MMA content. Seriously, we rarely miss a day.